Hello and welcome back to the MMA Split podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Josh.
I'm Sylvester.
We're here to talk about everything that's happened in the world of MMA in the last few days or so. Couple of cards to break down. A UFC card that none of us had a huge amount of faith in, but in all fairness, delivered a lot better than I think we gave it credit for. And a Bellator main event that we hyped up massively. Didn't end up watching live, despite telling everybody else to watch instead of the UFC. And had a spectacular, stunning, but maybe slightly anticlimactic finish in the grand scheme of all the build-up to its highly anticipated main event. We'll be covering all of that. And to be honest, I think the best place to probably start this week is the Bellator. 263's in the books. We got a new Grand Prix winner, a new featherweight champion. And to be honest, it was all a little quick and easy. Obviously, it's certainly not easy, but it was over before it began.
Well, it's just a crazy one. It was over before it all began, but in some ways that kind of helps to make the rematch so much more exciting, because if we'd seen AJ McKee, kind of dominate or manhandle Pitbull for a sustained period over maybe like 2-3 rounds, then no one would have any faith in Pitbull going into a rematch at 155, which it's what we talked about before. I'm pretty sure that's going to be the next fight for these two gentlemen. They're going to do the rematch at 155 for the belt, Pitbull's only belt now. And one of the things Coach Eric said after the fight was he definitely wants this rematch to be in Brazil. He found it kind of bullshit that the challenger gets to fight in his hometown and the champ has to come out to all those boos. Not that Pitbull complains, but it would be pretty cool if they do the rematch in Brazil. That's definitely going to kind of give Pitbull a bit of an edge. And truthfully, he got finished so quick. It's a weird one, man. He set up the head kick well behind the left hand, making Pitbull slip, dip down to the right, straight, shin to chin. But it's just a stupid mistake that Pitbull made. AJ, almost fluffed his lines, celebrating a little early. And
is that the quickest recovery you've ever seen from somebody fucking up from an early celebration? As in,
yeah. It's pretty quick, but I mean, like Beltran's on the ball there. I say like, no, does he keep fighting? They keep fighting, and obviously he was right to say that because Pitbull was straight back up, and then unfortunately into that standing guillotine. I mean, what did you guys think of the finish? I mean, I feel like he's out. He's just out. But like, I think Beltran's almost lucky in getting the perfect timing on the stoppage there.
Is that, if I remember, I've seen it, he's choking him standing up, right?
Yeah.
And then he looks at the ref to tell the ref, look, he's out. And the ref breaks it up, but the guy's actually not out.
Yeah,
Pitbull hasn't complained about it. He seemed to be just out, but it's one of those where he got it right, but he didn't have enough. The ref didn't have enough information to know 100% that that's the right decision. What he should have done.
When AJ says,
Oh no, I was just going to say what he needed to do is spend an extra second and a half, checking the arm, asking for a verbal response, and then do it. Because what ended up happening is a just getting back into conscious Pitbull kind of stands on his feet. It's pretty obvious what's happened, and he's explained what the result is. What could have happened is a Robbie Lawler-Ben Askren, where a furious Pitbull starts screaming because you've just taken his belt off him and he wasn't out.
Yeah, man. I mean, the main reason that Pitbull hasn't really complained about this is Pitbull's not a bitch. I'm not saying people don't have a right to complain when officials make mistakes, but Pitbull's a really classy guy at heart. And when AJ McKee says he's out, he's not out. And when Beltran goes to stop the submission, he's not out. But as he's kind of touching him, that is Pitbull's hands are going down. I don't want to say definitively he was or wasn't out. He was going to go out. I just feel like, I'm okay with the stoppage. It's not as bad as Mario Yamasaki, the Chiesa Kevin Lee one, but it's just lucky. I just feel like Beltran timed that perfectly by sheer fucking fluke.
Do you think he lands that high kick because he's got the length, he's got the reach, he had enough information on Pitbull to get a sense of what he was going to do? And do you think it was lucky that that strike lands when it does? Do you think that's just good preparation and good drilling and good sort of game plan? Or do you think it's just one of those things where that's one of the many aspects that that was one of the aspects he could have taken advantage of? It just happened to happen in the first minutes of the first round.
No, it's a great technique. It's went for and got. I just wouldn't expect Pitbull to have eaten that shot clean that early on in the fight. Obviously, we had a tense kind of feeling out period. And then the first time we kind of get an exchange, he backs him up to the fence. He lands that 1-2, followed up by the head kick. And we see a lot of guys are really effective in ending combinations with head kicks. Donald Cerrone on Rick Story is one of the all-time classics. But guys like Bobby Knuckles keeps really busy with these head kicks at the end of combinations. And it is a really effective way to fight. You need to really have that technique down. And you need a lot of cardio, flexibility, energy to be able to do this consistently throughout a fight. So I just think it's great fucking game plan, great preparation, great technique. Probably shouldn't have been able to land that that early on in the fight without having to throw maybe a naked head kick or just like throw the 1-2s and like build up different combinations. But you know, he managed to get his head to dip perfectly. I don't think he's reading Pitbull's movement at that stage. I think he's just literally throwing the technique and assuming that he's going to slip the punch and go down that way. And yes, it's just a really nice technique.
No, Bellator's got a undefeated champion who's got all the physicalities, all the attributes, all the technique to be extremely dangerous. Is that now 6 knockouts, 7 submissions, 13 finishes and 18 wins for AJ McKee?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 6 and 7, but yeah, that sounds about right. And yeah, it is 18 wins. I believe you're right. 13 finishes. I think is that 5 straight finishes.
5 straight finishes.
When was the last decision? Pat Curran, maybe? I don't know. But yeah, AJ McKee is legit one of the best 45ers in the world, possibly one of the best 55ers. I'm really excited for the rematch.
Who do you think gets more of an advantage with the rematch being at 55? Do you think that increases the likelihood for McKee, for Pitbull?
Yes.
Or are they?
No. Just McKee. Just McKee. Pitbull's a guy that can get down to 35. Okay, he's never really been a true lightweight. He's just that fucking good that he was able to beat Chandler. You know, this McKee has the reach, the youth, the athleticism. You know, for him, not having to cut as much weight or even being able to pack on a bit more muscle for the rematch, it's definitely. If you just look at the fact that it's in a different division, it's definitely going to favor McKee. I don't know how likely it is they'll get the fight down to Brazil, but obviously that would be a big advantage for Pitbull. And frankly, I just think the losing this fight this way. I mean, Pitbull's an intense guy. He's always switched on. I don't know if he has extra gears, but if ever something was going to draw the absolute best out of him, I think losing in this manner is the kind of thing that would do it. So I'm really excited for the rematch, even if it is at 55. You know, like I said, if we'd seen AJ beating up on him for a few rounds, it would almost seem like a foregone conclusion. But because he got dispatched so quickly, it's just one of those, shit, we didn't really get to see how they compare against each other. So it's almost like we're going to see him fight for the first time.
Yeah. And Pitbull's that as well. He's done enough good work in Bellator to be given the benefits of the doubt of an awkward early finish, which can happen to anybody. You know, we saw that happen with Joanna the first time she fought Rose, and even though she lost the rematch, fucking good close fight.
Yeah, like you understand that Rose and Joanna are at a similar kind of level. We really don't know with AJ and Pitbull. God damn, I want to see it though. I really want to properly see it. If we get another like first minute knockout, I'm going to be disappointed. I'm talking like Game of Thrones Red Wedding level. Like, you remember the first time you saw that episode?
That was fucked up. That was like,
I was throwing
"Shit,
shit
what
across
kind
the
of
room.
series am I watching? This is really fucked up. This is so fucked up." And that's pretty much the day I became addicted to it. I thought it was quite
Yeah.
average until then. I was like, "Oh, this is some really good fucked up shit."
Ned Stark getting his head chopped off in season 1 didn't make you think it was worth it.
I've seen heads being chopped off, quite a lot. But seeing
I
like,
feel like if you're not British, you don't you don't get into Sheen Bean or Sean Bourne as much as you should. I feel like non-British people kind of miss the point. They don't understand his genius.
Did you know that he now asks directors and producers when he's casting anything? He double checks to make sure his character isn't going to die towards the end of the film or in the season, because he's so sick of being typecast as the guy that always dies.
Yeah, man. And I remember when season 2 was coming out, he was like, "I'm just so gutted that they can't find a way to bring me back into the show. Evil twin, ghost, flashbacks. He's like, I love this TV show. Get me back in the TV show."
Oh man, the ones I feel really sorry for on Game of Thrones is the one where their characters were meant to go on longer in the books and then they got ripped off. That's got to be shitty, because there's some actors there reading the books going, "My character's going to be just fine. I'm in book 5." Cut to season 3. Yeah. Nope. Looking down the rest of the Bellator cards, a few surprising results. I didn't think Mads Bernal was going to beat Emmanuel Sanchez. Looked good doing that. Usman Magomedov, brother cousin. He's
brother cousin. Yeah. The little kickboxer
went through Muro. He got taken off in a stretcher after a knee to the body from hell. And Dagestani's just looking absolutely terrifying. And to be honest, I didn't watch much of the rest of the card aside from that. Despite everything we said on the pick show, I ended up with Sly watching the UFC instead of the Bellator. It's easier to find. I don't have VPNs. I've got the Fight Pass. Trying to actually find Bellator to watch is much more difficult. But yeah, very exciting. Good fights. Got to be honest though, I think the UFC ended up really surprising me over the weekend. I gave it so much shit, and for name value, it was still fucking terrible. But there were good fights throughout this card. Really good fights. You guys want to jump across to the UFC, or you got anything else you want to?
Yeah, let's jump across. Well, it's like I was saying, with the with the fight night cards, sometimes, especially on the international ones, you'll have a really poor level of competition or name value, or just a sense of kind of meaning in the fights in terms of like title pictures and rankings. But you can still get some excellent fights, which we definitely got. But we lost a lot of fights. We lost a lot of the fights that we were interested in.
We lost 2 fights since we did the pick show.
I mean, yeah. Fucking Nico.
I
called it. I said
pulled off the card. Nico Montana missed weight. Somebody else missed weight, but they were still able to compete, I believe.
Yeah. I forget who now.
It was lower down on the card. Much lower down on the card. I'll remember when we see it. We'll get to it. But a lot of fights pulled out. We ended up with 10 in total. Cheyenne buys as a co-main event in her second UFC fight. So I think that tells you a lot about what the level of the card was in terms of name value. But it really delivered, man. To be honest, I thought the fight that was probably the least interesting after I watched it was the main event, which we might as well start with, Hall versus Strickland. Slyer, we did try to tell you that Strickland was going to go through Uriah Hall.
Oh my God. You did. I tried to be fancy and just put I completely forgot. I was going to get myself Coca-Cola, sorry for this little advertising break, Pepsi, sorry. And I squeezed the lime on my ice cubes, completely forgot about it. So now I just saw my ice is melted. So I thought I'd have a sip of the melted water that was in my glass, which actually was just
cold lime juice.
Pure lime juice. Give me 1 second, because now I need to put more lime juice back in my glass.
Do you think?
Start talking about Strickland now. Come and talk about Hall in a second.
No worries.
All right. Well, man, we fucking called it.
We called it, man. I actually thought Hall was worse than I thought he was going to be. I actually thought Strickland wasn't as good as I thought he was going to be. But I just felt so much of it with Hall wasn't... You could see what Strickland was doing with the pressure and with the jab. but there was the other 50% was Hall beating himself. And it's just so synonymous with his career. And I thought this was something that had changed with his new camp and his new mindset. And it just seemed to go out the window the moment he had a difficult style matchup again.
It's like we said, to be honest, on paper, this was a fight that should favor him. But frankly, I felt that as someone that needs people to almost walk their way into his traps, he wasn't going to do well with a guy that's constantly moving forward, throwing strikes. And setting a middleweight record for significant strikes is 187, something like that.
Ridiculous number.
I'm sorry, I'm on my phone again. I still haven't got a computer for reasons I won't get into. But you know, like we said, even though it might look like a bad style matchup for Strickland and a favorable one for Hall, we figured that the reality was that Strickland was just going to keep pumping strikes in his face and make it difficult. And to be honest, I didn't think Hall was going to get all the way through to the 5th round. I was kind of impressed at his ability to, you know, kind of intelligently defend himself when it counted and to kind of tough his way through those situations. I just wish he could have toughed his way through a bit more of the stand-up exchanges and kind of made it a more exciting fight. He had some moments, like, don't get me wrong. There were some moments. I think like it was the end of the 1st round, he started putting it on Strickland a little bit. But, you know, it's the same old Uriah Hall. He couldn't maintain the aggression, the pressure, and shit. You know, like I said it last week. Like if you drag him into deep water slowly, you know he can look really tough and really determined and gritty. And I don't think Strickland was necessarily dragging him into it slowly, but he managed to kind of just fucking turn it into that kind of fight anyway. So in some senses, I was a bit more impressed with Hall than I have been to date. But yeah. Obviously, this was Strickland's time to shine.
I feel like this was such a fight because what happened is you've got Uriah Hall, who's actually quite talented fighter. He's actually really talented fighter, but seems to not have the intelligence to know what to do once he's in the ring, which is really frustrating when you're watching it and you want him to do well. On the other side, you've got Strickland, who is such a fight night fighter. He's not got that much technique in terms of like all-round fighting, but he just goes forward and hits and hits and hits and just gets hit, doesn't really care. But for Hall not to realize that leg kicks was the way to stop this from going on, he only started kicking him in the 5th round, which made no sense. It just, the whole thing was just such a, especially the card had some good fights, but this was shit. Not in terms of let's say there was a lot of hits. Strickland did his best, won the fight because he actually tried harder. But no, it was shit in many ways. It was shit to see someone like Uriah Hall not trying harder, not using his kicks, not using, just standing there being a punching bag. He's not moving his head. He's doing nothing very useful. He's just letting Strickland come forward, waiting for the opportunity to counter, which he's not going to get. Because anyway, if he counters, his hits are not strong enough or they're not landing clean enough to do anything to Strickland because he's predictable, because he's headhunting. He's not going low and then high or doing anything to try and like disturb him. So in the end, it was just, it was 5 rounds that took a lot of energy out of me. I was still awake watching it. And by round 3 or 4, just the same shit going on. You're just going, what the fuck? Why would you do a training camp? I'm talking about Uriah Hall here. For so long, train for so long, do all this work to then just be shit and not like, I don't know, not do all the things you have. You've got these kicks. Why are you not fucking using them? You got technique. No, you're just going backwards, waiting. The only moment that worked for Uriah Hall is when he went forward and then he stopped going forward. It was all working for him and he's like, oh, fuck it. No, I'm not going to go forward. So I don't know. I don't know what the point is to go there for 25 minutes, getting punched in the face and not even trying anything. I was quite disappointed by that fight. And Strickland is a beast, but he's never going to be a top fighter. He's going to have, another UFC fight night, and he's probably going to lose that one, then another one, and I don't know. It was just none of that made me really excited about UFC.
Well, I can understand that. What I would say is that it's not so much a question of trying hard. It's that I don't think Hall is martial. The best way I can put this, right? Uriah Hall's a martial artist. He's not necessarily, in terms of mindset, a fighter.
But that's part of being a martial artist, as in like I mean, you understand that, yes, you have the whole art of it and all that, but the mind, I believe, is as important as the physical capabilities. So,
of course.
no, okay, he's not a brawler, if that's what he's not a brawler like Strickland is. But as a fighter, you have to not only be intelligent, but you got to be motivated, and you got to understand that it's a fight.
I don't think it's so much about intelligence and motivation. I think it's more a situation, I'd love to get Josh's opinion on this as well, of what happens to your mentality under pressure. So the thing I'd say about Uriah Hall is that if you give him time and space, if you give him the ability to work things out and get his angles just right and be able to start working all of these spinning techniques, all of which require a certain amount of space and distance and time to be able to do so, he's an incredibly dangerous guy. What Strickland did is he applied, and I think he probably knew this from sparring Uriah Hall as well, and obviously his fight preparation and tape that his coaches probably watched as well. He understood how to apply just enough pressure to not give Uriah Hall that amount of time that lets him calm himself down, process the situation. And this has been an issue for Hall for a while. Even if you listen to his fight week, he's talking about like, yeah, man, this is really scary. You know, fighting's a terrifying thing. I'm putting my life on the line. Like, he's somebody that's very aware of his own mental negativity about this kind of stuff and self-doubt. But it only takes a little bit of pressure, and you don't give somebody that time. It's like setting a pace running. Okay, you could have a guy that could run 15 kilometers when he's basically setting his own pace and he's not too worried about the time and he's just focused on the distance. But if you say you've got to run at this guy's speed and that guy just runs just quickly enough to stop that guy getting that breath that just lets him settle down, a 15-kilometer runner can turn into a 4-kilometer runner who doesn't even get to 5K before he's exhausted. And it's not that he's not smart enough to know this. It's just that mentally he can't get himself into that kind of a rhythm. And I'll say this as well about Strickland, and Josh, I'll pass it over to you after that. I thought he did a really good job of using his jab to create pressure, but at the same time not overcommitting to be in danger. So it was a lot of, and he spoke about this pre-fight. He said, I've got to be Bisping against Silva. I've got to fill that space with the jab so that I'm not overcommitted and getting hit by counters, but I'm just constantly able to keep that distance I want and pressure forward. And I thought with his jab, he looked really good. And he might not be a flashy fighter. He might be a little rough around the edges. But in terms of certain fundamentals, he's got a lot of those in high regard. You know, he's got good striking defense, good shots straight down the middle. It's nothing overly fancy, but he's effective at what he does. Josh, I'd love to get your opinion.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And in fact, I even go as far as say he's almost like a thinking man's Tony Ferguson. It's if you take all the psychotic rage of T-Ferg and the constant moving forward and just sort of take away some of the more ridiculous like striking elements and some of the ridiculous jiu-jitsu, that's what you got. It's and obviously Strickland's got much nicer hands, to be honest. But yeah, Strickland knew how to push his buttons. He knew how to keep the fight at an uncomfortable pace for Hall. And what I'd say is, you know, there were plenty of times that I did see Hall try to get something going, but he'd get tagged or he'd get countered, and it just took the wind out of his sails. And
sorry to interject, just say this is kind of what I mean about fighter versus martial artist. Strickland is a fighter. He's there accepting that he's going to take those punches, and he kind of wants to take those punches. He's not there to necessarily pull off a flawless victory. He wants to get a little hit clipped himself, because that's kind of what he's looking for. He wants the
That's
fight.
what he enjoys. He likes being hit.
He enjoys.
He's like, oh, hit me, and I'll hit you back.
Uriah Hall doesn't really have that. Uriah Hall wants to put on a performance. He wants to be able to display his martial arts in a respectful contest and defeat his opponent, keeping himself as safe as possible. It's just a different mentality. So when Strickland gets hit by a shot from Uriah Hall, it doesn't deter what he's trying to do. But it doesn't take that many shots from Strickland to completely deter Uriah Hall. And as soon as you make it that kind of context, who's willing to stand in the pocket and trade, Hall is the first guy to exit that situation every single time.
But he should have exited. He should have taken 2 steps back and let Strickland come back, but give himself space. But he I don't know, for a lot of the fight, he looked like a deer caught in headlights. He was just standing there, not moving his head, not doing anything. You're like, come on, man. You just
More kicks. Would
Well,
have been good.
look,
yeah, kicks.
here's the
That's
thing,
it.
guys. You talk about Uriah Hall headhunting too much, but the thing is that was a reaction to what Strickland was doing. If you look at Strickland's striking numbers, headhunting is what he does in every fight because that's him working his game at the best possible way, and it does tend to drag other people into wanting to return headshots, which frankly wasn't at that range wasn't going to work for Uriah Hall, not with the difference in power they had. Yeah, if he kept separating, created a bit more distance, and was able to mix in like leg strikes from range, and also in combination, different fight. But you know, Strickland dragged him in to just this ridiculous like we've got heads, and that's where the points are. Just go for the head, and it just didn't favour Uriah Hall because Strickland did, as we said, kept everything at an uncomfortable pace, kept it. You know, it was a fighter's fight, and that's why Uriah Hall looked like he didn't belong in there.
Can I just mention one thing that did make me chuckle though? Michael Bisping on the commentary was so desperate to nail down the narrative that Uriah Hall hits harder than Sean Strickland. That even by round 5, he's still saying, I still think Hall hits harder. It's like, dude, we've had 5.
No, he does. In the power shots, if you take Uriah Hall's most powerful shots, they are a lot more damaging than Strickland's. But that's like 5% of his shots. The other 95%, Strickland's are all ridiculously powerful and very just good fundamental basic shots. You know, he's not looking to leverage like the most amount of torque on these heavy shots like Uriah Hall does. He doesn't need perfect technique. He just needs a good engine because the man's a fucking psycho and he hits fast and hard enough and keeps busy enough that he's a problem for everybody. But I agree with Bisping. I do think Uriah Hall has the capacity to hit a lot harder than Strickland. But he, you know, it needs to be these perfect shots, these textbook shots, which Strickland's not the kind of guy that's going to set these up for you. So,
well, listen, Strickland's moving on, most likely to the top 10. Uriah Hall's getting booted out of the top 10 because the UFC do not like this guy. The only reason that they're seriously, like the only reason that he's fighting Strickland is because they do not want him to win. They wanted Strickland to win this so they can propel him into the top 10. Uriah Hall has not delivered for them consistently. He's had 2 awkward fights, not rewarded for them, and he's paid the punishment, unfortunately, for that. And at 37, I don't see him getting on the kind of win streak he needs to get back into a title picture. He's still got the Chris Weidman rematch down the road, but we'll get to some news on that because Chris Weidman's return's looking a little less likely, unfortunately, which is a bit worrying.
Do you mind telling me now, since we're here, what happens?
back under the knife is leg, the joint.
Properly.
Yeah, it's not bonding, so they're going to put no, I think it's next week they're doing it. They're putting a metal plate in his leg to help support the bone.
Plates are not that great. Conor McGregor was like going on about, I don't know if you guys mentioned this already, but Conor McGregor was going on about, I've got titanium now in my leg. And a few people came out and they're like, mate, you try and kick with that and you're never going to feel as much pain because apparently, obviously, it's not supposed to be in your body. So when you kick with it, it comes back and like hits you in the inside of your leg, like in places where you've never felt pain before. So it's actually pretty fucked up. So
yeah.
It's not like titanium and that's it. You're like, oh, you know.
And the other thing on the Chris Weidman side is this is pushing his. He was at the point where he was hoping to be able to be doing stuff in the gym around the leg and doing rehab. He's now probably looking at another 6 months. This has pushed him back.
He's got one of those rowing machines where you just like row. You know, you can row without moving your legs.
He's probably got a lot of different things that he can do that don't put stress on the leg.
Well, like playing a Game Boy. Maybe Pokemon will take a while.
He's looking at like 38 before he's coming back. He won't be the same. It's unfortunate.
Well, I think in the last year we've lost a few good fighters to leg breaks.
To breaks in general. That fucking Jacare arm snap a couple of months ago. You heard that one.
That was uncomfortable.
Talk about beasts, though. I mean, he's just there smiling, acting as if nothing's happened.
Yeah, when you got to hold your arm in place.
Yeah, not pleasant. Not pleasant. Enough of the main event, though. Strickland's going on to big things. I'm with Sly on this one. I don't know how far he gets at his current level against the top 5 in the division.
It's hard to say because there was a time when Bobby Knuckles moved up from welterweight and people kind of suggested that maybe he was like a gatekeeper at best, kind of an undersized volume striker. And, he really fucking surprised everybody. Do I think Strickland has a comparable skill set? No, but the potential's there. He has a very nasty ground game. He's got a very good game plan with his striking game. Okay, and frankly, all he really would need to mix in is just getting some good takedown game. So just get some good wrestling offense and defense, because with his constantly closing the distance striking style, if people are coming back at him, he might find cheap takedowns there. And then I thought the commentary was on point for this event, but Bisping did a great job of explaining how good this guy is on the ground. It's just that he struggles to take it to the ground. But I don't see like label him future champ. I do think he's a legit dark horse. I wouldn't want to kind of cynically estimate where his ceiling's at, because frankly, I feel like there is a lot of potential to work with.
Can I suggest a fun fight for him? Luke Rockhold.
Yeah, that would be a fun fight.
Wow.
And I'd surely Luke Rockhold would go for that now.
Yeah, that's one thing.
I don't know.
That would be a lot of.
Because Strickland's going to fight anybody, isn't he?
That'd be a lot of head punching, just jabbing. That'd be a good fight. I'd watch that.
It depends how they position it for Rockhold. If that's like a co-main on a pay-per-view or something,
then
kind of like a no-brainer.
We spent enough time talking about what wasn't necessarily the most exciting fights on this card. Let's talk about Cheyenne Bays. And let's talk about
follow her home.
Let's talk about this. So when we talk about the Bellator, you said that Beltran stopped a submission, ended a fight when he was not 100. There was no way he could be 100% sure whether or not Pitbull was out. Cheyenne Bays lands a beautiful head kick, wins the fight with some ground and pound after. There is no fucking way that she knew that the girl's hand was off the ground. Like, the fact that the fingers were just off as the head lands is not some perfectly timed, I've worked this out. It is just pure dumb fucking luck that she gets to ride all the way to the bank. And it was a great head kick. She looked great. I love the post-fight interview. I think she's a lot of fun. She's already had the I'll follow you home, bitch. I love the fact that she's just like, yes, I'll fight again. I'm fucking broke. I'm so fucking broke right now. Please. Refreshing honesty. But she got, I mean, we're talking like millimeters between the fingers on and off the ground.
I think that's one of those, I see it a lot. And I guess the mentality is force the ref to make a decision. It's not just something you see in combat sports. You see it in all different kinds of sports. Play all the way up to the edge of the rules, There's a lot of illegal strikes that people do get away with because they look close. And you might be able to see it on the replay, but the ref hasn't got those kind of reflexes. So force the officials to make a decision. As long as you're clean more than you're dirty, I don't have a problem with it. It's when people are persistently fouling. I'm thinking, like John Jones, then you can go fuck yourself. But it is like a common sort of mentality in sports. In fact, I'd say it kind of goes into sort of gamesmanship and teamsmanship over sportsmanship. The idea that you put the result and you put your teammate's success ahead of kind of sportsmanship and ethics and morals. Yeah, that's for example, pretty much everything Luis Suarez has ever done.
Well, I don't know how. Luis Suarez is a debatable one, isn't it? I've got
that's gamesmanship all day. Getting the red card for handballing the ball off the line. They missed the penalty. Uruguay go through, even though he can't play in the final. Yeah. That is textbook. That's biting people's not. That's
I'm glad we established that. That's literally exactly where my mind was at that same point.
Because these are overly competitive people. So I mean, Luis Suarez has beaten a couple of people, but do you remember Pepe kicking the shit out of that lad
on the floor
when Real Madrid didn't win the league? Yeah, that's like the worst one I've ever seen.
14 reps.
No one gave
Back to
Pepe
back.
as much shit for that. That was brutal. That was proper soccer kicks.
Yeah, but that was like expected. It's like, oh, Pepe is just being Pepe. Like, I remember watching that and go, oh, has he not done this before?
You know what it is? It's something about biting people. It's just like universally agreed, like across cultures, that it's just not fucking on. It doesn't matter what the situation is. The person that bites the other guy just loses any fucking moral high ground. Doesn't matter. The guy could have been shagging his wife. If he bites him, everyone's going to be like, dude. What affairs happen? Don't bite someone.
I think in South America it might be different. I don't know, but maybe in South America it's like viewed the other way around. Like biting is more like.
No, it's, you know, as mammals go, we've got one of the worst bites in terms of like infection and everything else. So is the platypus is toxic?
Yeah. Highly toxic.
So then, and there might be a couple of other animals, but like we're right up there near the top of the list for like worst mammal bites. Just in terms of like infection and disease and bacteria, because we have like piss poor kind of bacteria and enzymes and everything in our mouth. Like dog bites, very clean. They've got very good whatever the fuck it is that keeps that shit clean. We don't.
You need a tetanus shot if you get bitten by a dog.
No, only like a dog that has rabies.
Rabies.
Dogs don't really have rabies unless they're like street dogs.
Yeah, it's mostly bats. And for a bat, it's not, fuck off. For bats, it's not even bites, it's like scratches. Because the other one is like, it can take like years for it to manifest. And by the time you've got symptoms, it's too late. Like you need to go and get your shot right away. But people just get like little scratches and grazes. And then it's like, shit, like you're going to die in like 5 years, but you don't know yet. This isn't MMA. I'm sorry.
So I've got a question. Come back to the MMA. So if you would have put one finger, and I'm talking just one finger on the ground, if one finger's touching, she gets kicked in the head?
Not quite fingers. I think it has to be an established fist or hand on the ground.
Okay, it has to be kind of more.
It can't just be, it's not like VAR. It's not like somebody's going to analyze the thing and fucking pixelate it down to see if there was.
What if, so let's say she did have her hand, but it was on the way up, and obviously the ref might be looking at the kick and not see the hand. If the ref calls it as a KO, can they come back and view the footage?
Yes, because they've got replay now, haven't they?
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So what would happen there, though, is the replay can only be used in a fight-ending sequence. So
I think in Las Vegas, that's different now. I think it can be used at any point.
Either way, if the ref had called the TKO and then realized that she was hit illegally, they wouldn't be restarting the fight. They'd have to, the fight would have already ended, and they'd have to call it as a no contest and then do the rematch.
Right. Okay. We can move on to the next fight. Sorry about that. We took a long while.
No, it's a good thing to bring up because this has come up, particularly with places that have different rules. When Chris Weidman fought Gegard Mousasi in New York in 2017, they just made a change to, in certain areas, what a grounded opponent was. And it switched from one hand to two hands, basically, didn't it?
Yeah.
Or two hands to one hand. But in New York, it was...
to three points of contact. So it didn't even necessarily need to be your hands. It was just, if, you know, well, essentially, if anything other than the heels, like, if you had 2 points of contact, but it wasn't the soles of your feet, that was a grounded fighter. But the idea that if you had a hand down or your knee down or you're on your bum or anything like that, 3 points of contact, you are a grounded fighter.
But in New York, I believe it was still the 4 points of contact when they fought in 2017. Have I got that right?
It was. And yeah, I think with that one, though, wasn't it just that his hands were up, basically? Like, just like he had just lifted him up enough before he landed the knee, right?
Yeah. Basically, the ref gave Weidman the impression, and Weidman's coaches gave him the impression, that as long as he said he can't continue, Mousasi was going to get disqualified. And what ended up happening is that Mousasi got the KO.
Right, because obviously the rules had not been changed. Okay, I get it. Okay.
Well, rightly so, because he had again, it was just off the ground, like just off the ground.
Okay, other question.
I think they even consulted a video ref in that, because I think it was either Herb Dean or Dan Mogliata, and they concerted that they still had Big John McCarthy on the sidelines. So they were able to speak to him. And obviously the guy who literally invented the rules was able to explain What the
So
situation
the
was.
rule now is if you have a hand firmly on the ground,
You're
we
a downed
can't-
opponent.
we cannot kick you in the head.
No. Or if you
Yeah,
have one
depend-
knee down.
Right. So here's my question: did you guys ever play Tekken?
Mhm.
Josh, you ever played
Yeah.
Tekken video game, like
Yeah.
fighting game? Right. There was a guy on there called Eddie, probably still is on, and he does like all this capoeira stuff.
Eddie Guerrero.
That's it. Now I'm just thinking here. So he does like a lot of kicks, but he's just got one hand on the ground, and then he like throws two legs up and all this.
Doesn't count if the legs are in the air.
Oh really?
Because the thing is, there you've only got 1 point of
Right.
contact.
That's what I was wondering.
You
okay.
have voluntarily to do
Okay.
something. It's in the same way as like when you're diving for a takedown or something like that. While you're in the air, you're not on the ground. But if you, that's where the 3 points of contact. So let's say I'm down on one knee. My points of contact would be the 1 foot that's flat on the ground, and then my knee, and then the rest of my foot. That would be the 3 points of contact. Or my 2 feet and one hand.
So why does no one go for like I'm gonna call it the cat attack? It's so you have like
cat-
No, this is why they changed the rules, because fighters were just kind of reaching down and just touching the ground to make themselves essentially, just protect their head. Once I've got like the hands down, he can't knee me in the head or kick me in the head anymore. And it became difficult because all that happened was a lot of strikes were falling in this grey area where one fighter is trying to make themselves a grounded opponent while the other striker is trying to the other fighter is trying to force him up or to time it right. And this is why they changed the rules. But yeah, if you're throwing like a cartwheel kick or something like that and you get caught, I think it's very much going to go down to what the ref uses, like the strike it, like the guy that lands the illegal shots intent versus the other fighter putting themselves in harm. If you time it really badly and do it really poorly, and the other fighter's just throwing at the same time, I can't imagine a ref's going to disqualify him for that. Probably
There's
not
other-
even take a point.
I think there's other rules as well. So, for example, you'll be forgiven for the strike landing if the opponent's grounded when it lands, if you threw the strike when he wasn't grounded. So, for example, let's say I've got you pressed up against the cage. You're seeing that a knee might be coming. And so you try and just quickly dip your hands and your knee down so that I'm grounded when it lands. But I threw it when you still had your hands in the air. Just because you managed to touch the ground before the knee lands doesn't make the strike illegal. I threw the strike with the knowledge that it was going to land illegally. Same with back of the head punches. Like, you're not meant to strike the back of the head, but if you throw on somebody and they turn away and it strikes the back of their head, but you were aiming for the front, that's not your fault.
Right. Okay. Cool. We really should move on to the third fight.
Yeah, Sharon Bays looked good. Really good. Good for her. I liked her post-fight interview where she just said there was no fucking way I was going to be, my legacy in the UFC was going to be the scarf holds chick.
Yeah. It kind of is.
And she got
Like-
50 grand as well. So, helping out that brokenness a little bit, which is good.
Yeah, she's definitely not broke anymore. She's got 50 grand.
Let's talk about Nicholas Stoltz. Sometimes you get a short notice opponent. It's great. You get some guy who's not really prepared and he's not fit and you get an easy night's work. Sometimes you get not Jared Gordon, which is what I said.
Jared Gooden. Yeah.
Jared, which has been very confusing at welterweight. I mean, a massive turnaround for Jared Gordon. Really looking to change his career there. Jared Gooden, who fucking knocked Stoltz the fuck out. Bad night for Stoltz. Great night for Gooden.
Yeah, I'm glad for Gooden because this was his third fight in the UFC. He dropped the first two.
I think so. Yeah, his first fight in the UFC was Abubakar, and his second fight in the UFC was Abubakar. His first fight in the UFC looks like it was Alan Jouban, which is never an easy one.
And they weren't bad fights. And just I'm just glad the guy isn't going to be like 3 and out.
Yeah.
Stoltz, he'll be able to rebuild from here. Talented guy.
He's not. Yeah,
We
he
got
didn't
that
get
one
the
wrong.
preparation time. Jared Gooden's just a beast, man. Guy hits hard for welterweight.
Yeah, that was just a really nice shot.
Great shot. Also a great shot. Referred to on the pic show as Baghdad by Slide, but I believe you pronounce his name Baghdasarian. looked ridiculous against Algan.
Yeah.
So FYI, I got the main event right on my picks, and I got the co-main event right. Every other fight on this card, main card and prelims, I got wrong.
Wow.
I got 2.
So
I got
wait.
2 out of 10.
How many did you get, Josh?
I think 6, but we need to confirm that. I did a 6, 3, and 1, but obviously we kind of did when we were doing the pick shows. I hadn't prepared them, so I hadn't written them down, and I'm doing it on my phone. I got nowhere to type it, so
Okay.
I believe 6, 3, and 1. Can we? I tell you what, when we run through the card at the end, I'll just quickly tally them all up.
Sound. Yeah, I got the Jared Gooden one wrong. I got Bagdasarian horrifically wrong. Bagdasarian looks excellent. Excellent contender.
It looks like an excellent striker, but maybe a little over aggressive. And I don't know. I just feel like the first decent grappler he comes up against is going to be a real watershed moment for him. I want to see what he can do at that point.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But for a UFC debut, I think you've always got to attribute a little bit of nerves and overexcitement to be expected.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I thought fight of the night, Brian Barberena against Jason Whip. Barberena didn't get the win, but he delivered exactly what he's known to, which is deliver absolutely fantastic fights. Got completely out-grappled for the first 2 rounds, and then that third round was about as exciting and back and forth as any round of MMA you're going to see.
Yeah, I was out of my chair for about, I say pretty much the whole of the last minute and a half. I couldn't quite sit down anymore. I just wanted to see my boy make the comeback.
He almost did it. Jason Witt showed some heart to just keep that takedown going at certain moments.
Man, that was good fight there.
James Krause fighters,
Really good. Barberena, he just needs to learn how to how to stop a takedown. It was way too easy to get him down. Way too easy.
Yeah. What's that in the background?
Mia playing games.
I swear I could hear someone else in the room. Sorry. Must have just been a noisy neighbor.
No. It's Mia downstairs playing video games.
Fair enough.
We know.
I'm sorry.
Like.
Barberena, takedown defense. Yeah. Couldn't hurt. Never hurts.
Jason Witt moves on. Survives. Yeah. Then we get to the prelims. I did not do well on. So the Groot Smucker, who I should have picked just on the fucking name, got it done against Rafi Garcia.
Biggest underdog on the card, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that when I picked him.
I didn't know that when I picked Rafa Garcia, and I still got let down. So that sucked. We both got the Danny Chavez.
Great fight, though.
Oh, great fight.
Oh, good.
Sorry.
What was also a great fight was Danny Chavez against Kai Kamaka. Draw in the end, but real back and forth. Both guys getting hurt, both guys having their moments. Good fight. Really good
Great fight. Yeah.
Also, I got wrong. Jinyu Frey gets it done against Ashley Yoda. I did not think that Jinyu Frey was that strong. I just don't remember her looking so physically imposing. And as soon as the fight started, I just thought, I don't see how Ashley's going to win this. She doesn't look big enough to be able to do what she does. And striking, she didn't have enough to handle Jinyu.
No, and as a grappler, she's a real slick grappler, but she's not a strong grappler. And like physically, she's not like DC, Matt Hughes, Tatiana Suarez. She doesn't just like ragdoll Habib. She just doesn't got that kind of game.
No.
She's like Rose Namajunas without the striking.
She hasn't got that good at jiu-jitsu. She hasn't got that creative, explosive jiu-jitsu.
When is Rose coming back?
That's a good question. The better question is, who is Rose coming back against?
Yeah.
We can get to that in the MMA news. Let's quickly just run through these last 2 prelims. Ryan Benoit against Zaruk Adashev, the Battle of the Bad Records. I also got this one wrong. Benoit laid a bit of an egg. Adashev turned it on. Kickboxing looked really good, to be fair. I was impressed. Made me change my opinion on him big time. And then I also picked Kosuke to beat Philip Rowe. which did not fucking happen. Another impressive knockout for Philip Rose. Looked really good.
Yeah, the Fresh Prince. I didn't realize who Kosei was when we were making the picks. Again, didn't prepare last week. But do you remember him and his brother coming through Contender Series?
I don't. So I didn't really watch a lot of the series.
Yeah, so I'm actually a big fan of these two boys, and like you can see why when you watch him fight. You know, these guys want to go out on their shield every time. So, it's kind of like the Diaz brothers. I don't give a fuck if they lose every fight. I'll watch them every time.
He tried. He hung in there for a lot longer than I think people thought he was going to.
Yeah. So let's go. So I got that one wrong. I went for Kosei. I got Adeshev, Frey. Who else on the prelims?
You got Grutzmacher. So 1, 2.
Pick Grutzmacher.
I've only got 3.
3, 4, 5.
It's your win, Josh. You've won it.
6. I think you got 6.
Yeah.
What did you get?
3.
I got 2.
Oh man, when he was like, how'd you do, Josh? I thought you had sneakily gotten like 7 or 8 or something.
No, that's when I heard Matt say 2. I was like, shit.
Well, last week, Matt won with 3 because I got 2. So
our picks were
it's been
identical,
done.
apart from one fight. So even watching it, I knew that it just all hinged on what happened in this one fight. But yeah, it was a good card, surprising card. I'm a lot more excited about this weekend's card, I have to say. I'm very excited. We're going to have Tommy Trolls himself as a special guest on the pick show this week because he's so excited about this card. He's going to be giving his picks and predictions. Even without Amanda Nunes, this is still a lot of fun. We got Jose Aldo against Pedro Munoz. Obviously, Cyril Gunn against Derek Lewis. And Vicente Luque is fighting Chiesa on this card, or is that 266?
I didn't think it was on this card, but again, I'm on my phone. I'm so poorly prepared. Slow. When's Luque fighting next?
Yeah, man. Matt's on it.
It is this card. I was correct. We've also got Song Yudong against Casey Kenny, Angela Hill against Tisha Torres. God, Angela.
Fine. Don't scare it away.
Bobby Green's fighting. Fiziev's fighting. Oh man, they're
fighting each other, aren't they?
They are fighting each other. Your boy Manel Cape is fighting Ode Osborne. There's a Miles Johns versus Anderson Santos has been moved to this card. A lot of fun to be had on that pick show.
This is going to be the last time I pick Manel. If he fucks me over on this one.
You going to pick Angela?
Huh?
Are you going to pick Angela?
No. Cup. Cape Cup.
There's a fighter that he was super championing up. He's now lost his first 2 UFC fights.
Yeah, and quite disappointingly, like just through a lack of will.
I think he was a bit hard done by in the second fight, but we'll get to that on the pick show. For now, we're going to touch on a little bit of UFC news, and I can see no better place to start than the announcement of Islam Makhachev versus RDA, booked for UFC 267, October the 30th.
Again, I don't want to jinx it. This is the 3rd time it's been booked, right?
It has.
Something like that.
But this card is in many ways serving itself to be a card of equality, a redemptive card, a cathartic card. We're getting Jan versus Sterling 2. That's going to be the correct winner of that original fight will be decided. We're getting Big Jan, other Jan, against Glover Teixeira. Many people said Glover should have already had his opportunity to fight for the belt. That's being righted on this card. So I'm trying to view this card as the card where all of these things that weren't rightly done beforehand are done on this card. I think is Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje on UFC 267 or UFC 268? Because if that's on UFC 267 as well, my analogy is 100% spot on. Oh
yeah, it'd be fucking sick if that's on 267. I don't know that that the fight is all set and done. It's all but done. So I don't know if there is actually a date agreed yet, because it's one of those, like, it's more than a rumor where we're almost certain it's happening, but until it's actually fucking there and real, I'm worried about believing in that one too much either, because I need to see that fight.
I'm sure it's going to be 268 because you've got Usman fighting on 268. So you know that Trevor Whitman's going to want to just be able to 2-in-1 his fighters on the same day.
Yeah, it's it can be a good way to do things. I think it's good for the energy you have in your training camp and everything else. Obviously, it does mean that your head coach is splitting responsibilities kind of in the final week and on the final night. But with Gaethje and Usman, you've got a guy who was already a champion before he came to Whitman and knows what he's doing. And then you've got a guy that's been with Whitman forever and as a consequence knows what he's doing. So for these guys, that would be perfect.
I couldn't agree more. And it's going to be an absolute barn burner of a fight. Other fun fights which are definitely announced. We've got Cody Garbrandt making his flyweight debut against Kai Kara France. I think this is a good, sensible fight to get him into the division. Make sure he can make the weight. Make sure he can fight at 25. Make sure he's actually earned something before we start talking about title shots.
Yeah, it's a relevant opponent, but also what I think he would view as a winnable fight.
Exactly. And really, I think I'm a big believer, particularly if a guy's going down in a weight class, make sure he can make that weight before you start booking title fights.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember, who did Kenny Florian fight when he went down to 45 before Aldo? They're pretty good at doing it, because nothing sucks more than when someone misses weight on the fucking championship tilt.
They don't worry about it when the guy's going up. It's only such a concern if the guy's going down.
Yeah. And
I think that's 100% right. I think it's the way it should always be. You should have at least one win in the weight class you want to be champion of before you fight for the belt.
Yeah. And Moreno's already putting his name in his mouth. So, you know, if you win this fight easily, early, quick turnaround, you know, he could be fighting for the title early next year.
100%. Also opens up the possibility of a trilogy between Moreno and Figgy in the meantime.
I don't know if that's going to happen, you know. I don't think you can win the rematch definitively and then kind of book the trilogy. There are times when they've kind of done this sort of thing, but I feel like that there are other options at 125. And I think that with Cody Garbrandt entering into the mix, I'm pretty sure the matchmakers are going to be a bit more patient with it. I don't think they're going to look to book Moreno until they kind of know where the rest of the top five stand.
That's a sensible way to look at it. In terms of the rest of the news, like, any big stories standing out to you?
They're thinking of keeping, but I'm not sure if this is correct, Jiri Prochazka. Let me just check this before I get the news correct. I think as a potential backup for 266.
267 now, I believe, for that fight. But
oh yeah, now he's been moved to 267, so he's going to be a potential backup in case someone pulls out.
Yeah, that's a sensible option. I think he's the right guy for that.
That'd be cool. Although if Glover falls out, it's going to break my heart.
Nobody deserves that shot more than Glover. Also, is this going to be would they have the oldest ever? No, DC and Stipe would be an older fight. I was thinking of the title fight ever being contested with an average age as old as what it's going to be. With one guy at 41 and the other guy at like 37, 38. But I'm sure
Randy Couture's probably set that record with someone. Like Randy Couture got into the game really late. I think he started fighting professionally until he was in like his mid-30s.
Yeah, I've got maybe his trilogy fight with his third fight against Chuck Liddell's got to have an average age.
Yeah.
Over 80.
Right.
But either way, it's an impressive veteran feat
you're
going to see in that fight. And yeah, I'm all for that. That's cool. Any other news?
That's it. That's all I've got.
Okay, so a bit of news that I've seen in. McGregor is going to be competing in a wheelchair boxing match for charity.
Mate, He's everywhere.
He's keeping his name in the news. It's a strange one. He is competing against a guy who's actually paraplegic. So he's going to have, one, far more skills in terms of how to box in a wheelchair. And two, the rather important advantage, which I have heard from the Paralympics related to like wheelchair basketball, that it's a sport where you really don't want to have any sense of nerves or feeling left in your legs, because they are going to get clattered against hard metal by people who no longer feel that body part.
That'd be interesting. I reckon McGregor will probably win.
It's not. How is he going to be able to do this while he's under contract?
I think it's like it's a charity. I don't think it's a serious thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like GSP against De La Hoya was going to be an exhibition thing, but the UFC still had the power to nix that. I just don't understand how he's going to get the authority to do this, and I don't think he can like throw his clout around like he used to, threaten to retire, and have everything kind of go his way. So I really don't think it's going to happen. I think it's a terrible idea. I think he's probably off his head on coke when he declared it, and I imagine he'll have pulled out in a couple of weeks, probably citing someone else as being to blame for it or whatever. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy. We won't go into
You guys are such haters, man. You hate him.
Yep.
Hating.
Yep. Yeah. Unashamedly. Makes me feel like a better person.
We're not really hating. If we were hating, we talk about his tweet at Khabib's father, but we're not going to go into that.
Oh.
I'm going to just treat him with indifference for the rest of it. When he fights next, I'll be interested. Across to bare knuckle boxing, the boss of bare knuckle boxing has said that Paige Van Zandt faces a must-win situation after dropping her first 2 fights in the organization. And I'm not surprised, because they're paying her a lot more money than every other woman they've got on the roster. And at 0-2, she is not looking like the title contender and face of the franchise that they were quite hoping she could be.
To be honest, though, isn't this kind of the best long-term situation for them? Because if Paige Van Zandt wins 4 or 5 fights and then fucks off, it hasn't really got any residual effect on your product. But if Van Zandt comes in and gets starched, or not starched, but gets beaten 4 or 5 times and then fucks off and does something else, you've still got a little bit, a bit more kind of enamor around those women who presumably you're going to be struggling to, or actively trying to keep on your roster, probably for less money overall. I feel like long term, this is the best way it could pan out for them. But
there's another way to look at this, and I think it won't affect them in the same way, because they're doing kind of their own sport and their own thing. And I think it is starting to sort of grab a small audience that's willing to watch it and get invested, and they're getting some fighters that have got people interested. But I think they thought that they were signing a real MMA star that would do well and they could really position up as a poster girl for them. And I think they feel at the moment like they've ended up with a little bit of a Kimbo Slice. In the sense of, like, what was it, Elite XC? Was it Elite XC or something? That tried to sign, they signed Kimbo Slice, and they had this whole big thing, and then he got knocked out by Seth Petrozelli in 16 seconds. It just completely killed the company's whole thing.
Yeah.
It feels like a less extreme version of that, where they wanted Paige Van Zandt for the name, yes, but they expected her to be actually good enough to at least deliver against the lower level and shallower.
And they should have done their homework.
What they failed to realize is that Paige Van Zandt, despite having a lot of issues with UFC fighter pay, has always been overpaid what her talent level is. And this is one of the issues. It's like there's a difference between your value and what your talent dictates. And the best guys are going to be the guys that do the best are the guys where those two things are pretty high and pretty equal. You get a lot of guys where their market value is bigger than their actual talent. And Paige is one of these situations. She became a star before she was a star in terms of her quality. And it's kind of stopped her really improving. She's been focused on all these other things. I thought boxing was a bad idea for her in general. She's not a great boxer. She's got good grappling, decent kicks. So it's never going to be a good
Yeah.
idea. But she's under pressure.
Well, to be honest, I don't know if she really is, because I think they're probably going to use it to leverage maybe like a lower contract or something, maybe just renegotiate. She's probably about as big a pay-per-view draw as they've got. She's bringing eyes on the sport. She's building up some of the other talent that they're going to have an easier time keeping, and is more cost efficient to keep. This is, there's no downside for bare knuckle as far as I see it. As soon as her purse no longer justifies the pay-per-view numbers, renegotiate or boot her. But she's going to help build up their product a little bit. She's definitely going to get more people watching than would otherwise. And, you don't get a lot of new fans that way, but the growth that you get is organic growth. It's the growth that stays with you as well. And it's the kind of people, the kind of fan base they want to be building. So I think it's good for them to have fighters with Paige Van Sant as a win on their record. And it just gets a few more eyeballs on their product. So, you just leverage a cheaper contract. Like, they're not going to cut her. Like, the day that she leaves is very much going to be her decision. And I don't think she was ever going to stay there for very long. So,
no, I think Bellator is eventually going to be her home.
Yeah.
But we will see. I think that's pretty much it for the show today, guys. Thank you very much for your time. Join us, everybody, on Friday, where we will have Tommy Trolls as our special guest for the picks.
I'm excited for that.
Have a great week.
Bye,
and
Laurie.
bye, Dave. Bye, Laurie.
Bye, Dave.
Bye.